Welcome to Print Your Games, the podcast about what's new, awesome, and 3D printing for gamers. I'm one of your hosts, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param, and I'm joined by
Kristen Sowards, also known as Seventh Mastery.
Kristen. Our episode last week kind of pushed some nerves or buttons, or I don't think anybody was upset by it, but a whole lot of people had some very paragraph documented opinions about what may or may not be causing certain artists to leave the industry.
Well, that's a lot of content to push out every month. You know, we've
It
talked to
really
our one man
is.
shops, and it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. So it's surprising that so many companies have entered the market that are literally drowning us in STL files. Hundreds of models, massive piles of digital, pile of shame.
But what a way to go to be
I
drowned.
know, it really is great.
Yes.
So today's topic is going to be talking about the mega bundles. These
Yay.
you've seen them, the epics, the OPRs, the Titan Forges, the groups that you give them a tiny little bit amount of your money every month, and they give you more models than you could hope to paint in that amount of time by themselves. They have, just looking at the numbers, they definitely make up the top of the charts as most numbers of subscribers in the industry.
Well,
And
the value.
it's really
Values.
easy to see why.
It's
Yeah.
huge. Yeah, you can't argue with it. You can't, like, I think we oftentimes talk about how we have that. Am I going to buy at least this many STLs before I subscribe to their
Right.
Patreon?
And
I
the
have
number's two for me. Two.
Yeah, because it's usually around $3 to $5 per file, and it's often around $10 for the Patreon. So, you know, you're gonna get two, or like I think Epic. We mentioned Epic. They have threes for all of their troop style or group style monsters. It's usually three, and if it's a monster I want three of them. You know, and there you go, right there. And I get two sets right now. It's crazy, and a backup set.
Yep. It's kind of nuts. And also like I work for One Page Rules, so disclaimer there. But OPR for the past few months have been putting out 3 armies a month, and as the guy who has to make those preview videos, I'm like, ooh, slow down a little bit, gang. I got to make these. It's taking a long time.
Well, and the quality usually is increasing on almost all of these Patreons. Like they're getting more artists, better artists. The artists are getting more consistent with a look. Right. So that, like,
they get more subscribers, so the budget goes up.
Yep.
More money can be spent on more models, so the bundle is more attractive. More people come in. It's a natural evolution. It's a natural phenomenon. It's like this is going to just snowball into crazy town.
Yeah. Mark Shebet says, did you guys see the new one for Loot Games doing $2 bundles? I have not seen that.
No. Mark, if you could just tell us a little bit about that in chat, we would super appreciate. Because, oh my gosh, $2 bundles. And
please tell me it's their backlist.
One of the better crew for sure that's doing it. So what are some of the big names, like the huge companies that are just flooding us with models every month?
OPR,
I mentioned One Page, OPR, Epic. Epic is definitely the king. Like they absolutely flood the Patreon with models every month. It's like 4 sets and then some backup sets, and any one of those would be more than most other groups are putting out all told.
Yeah. I would say Cast and Play with the throwback is pretty big, and Titan Forge for sure,
right.
Especially
if you count the terrain. When you put Cast and Play gives you a full month's worth of terrain is with their full month's worth of models
and custom bases, which adds up. See, he says it's blowing up all over Facebook ads. They've got 500 new stuff. It's not Loot Games. It's Loot Studios. Loot Games, not Loot Studios. Okay.
Yeah,
interesting.
So, hey, go check that out, gangs. If you see if it's for you. I have a feeling me and you will miss it because we will be doing this podcast.
Probably, right? Yeah.
Kristen frantically thumbing on the cell phone.
Oh no! Don't do that to me, because now I'm having that I'm gonna miss out moment.
Oh no, FOMO drives this market, and I definitely want to start talking about FOMO.
Oh
But
yes.
so there's Arc Villain Games. They also put out a
Added
stupid
their
amount of stuff.
sci-fi now too.
Oh yeah, I need to go check that out. I probably missed the early bird on that. There's um, honestly, Artisan Guild was one I used to consider into the mega bundle category, but they
Mhm.
don't seem all that mega anymore. Despite putting 30 models out a month.
Well, I think that's back down to one person again too after
Yeah.
the Amazon
Yeah.
Kickstarter lady left, Francesca.
Yeah. And I'm not going to say they're not worth it each month. It's a
Oh
great
no.
amount of stupidly high quality modular models every month for sure.
Yeah.
I love them. I'm never going to drop them.
And
But
they're
like I used to consider
consistent
them the top.
release to release to release. The way that you
Mhm.
can interact their stuff is so good.
Mhm.
Like I had to do a gunslinger type character the other day, and now that they have that vampire monster hunter set, I can
Oh
just go
yeah.
lift that off, and it works on any character. So if you need an elf, you need whatever, you go to their elf set, grab that, and slap it together, and there you go.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
Mark has a good
per
point. Infinite Heroes also puts out a ton of stuff, especially if you
Oh
get their
yeah.
Overlord.
Oh yeah. $16 a month for Heroes Infinite, and you just get like an entire range for an entire army suitable for playing Warhammer or Age of Sigmar or one page rules. Like you don't just get some of the models. Like there's a bunch of Patreons that like, they're dedicated to the wargaming crowd. So I'm thinking about Highland Games where like we're gonna be focusing on the undead armies they have like leading up to Halloween. So they released, you know, this month they're going to put out 3 units, which is still like 40 50 models that they put out every month. um and then over the course of several months the entire like everything you could ask for gets released for that range. It's like all the undead army is ready with all the heroes and the specialty units and everything you want to get your old hammer on. Whereas Heroes Infinite, it's just like boom, here's the entire freaking army all at once for
All
16
your
bucks.
your hero characters and everything, and then you get the troop ranges. You throw on a y-axis shift, and you've got probably minimum 10 models per
Yeah.
squad, like per pose.
Yeah. They do usually 5-person squads for the troop models.
Mhm.
One of them designated a leader. Yeah, and you've heard me say it before that you just really need 3, and more helps, but 3's the minimum. Mark Shabbat saying Bestiarium as well. Yeah, absolutely. Bestiarium and has been like a lot of models.
I had finally cut myself off from them, and then they released this month they're like this cool sculpted bone ossuary thing, and I was like,
oh no,
so I'm
you've
back
been
on
trapped.
that horse again.
Oh gosh. And we just interviewed Dragon Trappers Lodge. They started off on the slow side of things, but now it's just
huge.
stupid amounts of models every single month. And like this is becoming the norm, like especially for the as crews become successful. If they're not putting out 30 models minimum, you know, they kind of get looked down upon. They have to, like, if you're not doing the 30 models minimum, you have to be on the opposite side of like the boutique style where it's like a very few models that are super artistically awesome, like your twin goddess or your others in that category. And I love both of those styles, and I subscribe to some of each of those categories, but I can see how it's getting harder and harder and harder for the one-man crews to keep up. I mean, what I know from studying 3D modeling and getting into it and interviewing a lot of the creators that are into it, you can finish a model a day. That's about what a full day's worth of work can get. Can get a good professional 3D sculptor. In 4 to 12 hours, you can pump out a cool, awesome model that's ready to go.
Yeah, Scott will sometimes stream a Comet Lord sculpting day, and usually gets 1, maybe 2 sometimes, but it's usually 1, like mostly all done in 1 session.
Right. And playing with modular shenanigans, you can pump up the volume a little bit on what you're able to. Like a lot of the crews that we talk about do that. They repose, they make modular to get more bang for that sculpting period. Get a body done and then get some legs done and mix and match those and different weapons and hand sets and rig the body so you can repose it. Like Heroes Infinite's like one of the few that's like these are all unique.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, hello, Alex. Thanks for joining us. So it's possible for these one-man crews to meet that demand if it's all they're doing all day, every day, to meet that 30 model minimum every month.
Right.
And that, I'm assuming that some of that is achieved through multi-pose shenanigans and customizable modularity kits and stuff to get the count up. But still, that's a lot of unique sculpts that are going to need to be made. Usually you can get away with like one crew that's super modular or two crews that are super modular, but then you need to come with like the monster and the big centerpiece or something that's going to catch eyes and the heroes and whatever. Or if you're on the terrain side of things, you just got to bring a lot of terrain.
Yeah. Although I've noticed a lot of times once people get the hang of sculpting terrain, the output's pretty big for that.
So it's possible for these one-person crews to do it and to meet that output, but that's got to be grueling, and it's got to be your full job to match that. Like it's not something easily done as a side gig. And so I can see why they would be feeling the pressure from because we talked with Titan Forge, and that's a huge team. OPR is a big team. Titan Forge is a big team. I don't know about Epic, but I assume that it's a big team.
It's got to be a big team. Yeah.
Like I know a lot of these crews that we chat with, like DTL, they're hiring freelancers to do some of the work, to do all of the work in some of the cases where it's just like the main lead is just a designer, as a concept artist, and then they hire sculptors to turn the concept art into 3D art. Which is like not to denigrate that method, because concept artist is hard, important work to doing a cohesive set. Any good crew that's working together benefits greatly from having that concept artist just giving a very clear vision of what things need to look at.
We've had a lot of people come on and talk about how, like, with 3D Arts Digital, for instance, how the idea man had to come in to get like the sculptors energized with the setting and everything. James mentions the creativity would be hard as well. Yeah. It's part of the gig as well, and not burning out and not having, that well dry up.
And the value proposition, like the $10 a month, the people are expecting that big pile, or you really got to bring it with like super high quality sculpts and for a lower count. And, either of those two options is a full-time gig.
Yeah.
For at least a full-time gig, and likely is going to take more than one person, because then you got to prep this stuff for 3D printing. You've got to do the marketing material. You've got to make the preview videos. And I tell you, that's not easy. That ain't easy. You've got to get this stuff onto the storefront. You've got to do customer service. Like, even if you could sculpt every day, you really only have half those days for sculpting, and half of those days, and this is a generous estimate from my involvement in the industry, has to be devoted to all the other stuff that involves running a business like this and getting things,
social media presence and all that stuff. Yeah.
Getting pre-supports. And if you're not pre-supporting them yourselves, you're hiring a pre-support crew or a pre-support artist to do that work for you. And that's going to take out of your bottom line. So you got a minimum number of subscribers you got to hit. And this is getting to be a crowded market.
It is. Although there are people, like I still am, like when I go to these Discord communities, and I love this person. I honestly don't know. I think it's he, Treebeard though. Treebeard is in like every Discord I'm in and is actively subscribed to all of them.
Oh wow!
and yeah, it's also super, super helpful in the community. By the way, big shout out to them if they hear this, because really, really great member of all these communities. But yeah, there are people that just add more and more and more. I mean, I have limits. They're higher than they should be, but I have limits. There are people who don't seem to. So,
yeah. And so, wow, it's a great time to be in wanting to buy some 3D printed models if you're willing to do it monthly.
Oh yeah.
It's a great, like, for the consumer, Oh my gosh, is it a good deal? It my little southern car salesman comes out, is like, oh, whoa boy, look at all these models you're getting for, it's all y'all almost stealing from me at getting them so cheap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm
But
in that whole like Utah families of 10 plus.
mhm.
We bargain shop pretty hard out this way, and I can't say no to a big huge value. I can't. It's bone deep.
Yeah. But one of the criticisms we got from yesterday or last week's episode was about, hey, these mega groups are like, are they hurting the entire industry by making the perceived value of a 3D model so low? Like really, like I'm trying to examine like how my brain views it. It was like we talked about Heroes Infinite at $16 a month. When I subbed to them for the first time, I was like, $16?
Yeah, I was the same way. I was like,
That's a
oh
lot
no.
of money. But it's not. It's not. It's not the amount of money at all. It's one trip to the for lunch if I decide to order an ice cream. It's not much, and boy, is it a lot of models. And I shouldn't be thinking about it as so much money. But then it's like, well, Artisan Guild, I'm getting them for 8 or 10. I know some of these crew I'm getting them for 8 and 6 for a
Do you have
similar
a
crazy
early?
amount of.
Do you
Yeah,
have
well,
an
I'm
early?
hanging on to a whole lot of these early birds.
Okay, I was about to say,
You
I had
taught me
my.
the ways of this, Kristen. You
Well,
taught me the ways.
I definitely, especially during that tribe moves
Mhm,
stacked, snacked up as many as I could. But
mhm,
yeah, it's
mhm. I got some of these $5 ones that I'm going to take to my grave.
though the $5 ones in my experience are usually the ones that struggle. Like
Ooh.
more and more of those are the people
Oh no
going
no
on
no! I'm not
holds.
talking about the new $5.
Oh, you're talking about
For
like a legacy $5 sub.
yeah, like a legacy $5 for like I think that's my Puppets War. It's like, ooh
Oh
boy,
yeah, I will let go of that.
never given that one up.
I've been there since pre-sale, basically on that.
Oh boy, and you know, and it's kind of skewed the value of minis. Like it has skewed the value of physical minis for two. I told you before, like going to that discount store, finding like Rune Wars, like it's a box of literally 30 skeletons for $1, $1. Great quality models. Nah, I'll just print some at home.
Yeah. There is starts to be things like, well, does it match the color scheme of my paint? Whatever. If it's pre-painted, does it fit this way or that way? I ran a Strixhaven
Mhm.
D&D thing a few times now, and I wanted the Auric bad guy mage for this reveal,
Mhm.
where one of the students turned out to be a secret plant mage, and like not a plant mage, a plant who was a mage from this bad order. Anyway,
Mhm.
and I saw the paint up on the mini, and I was like, that is bad. I can't justify buying a $50 box set to get one mini in this box set when I can probably either kit bash or go find something close or whatever, and
Mhm.
frankly, that's if my players even care about it, and so yeah, I couldn't do it. There would have been a time I would have like rationalized that and bought that $50 box set, but I don't think I've bought. Wow, I don't think I've bought like a pre-paint box set in over a year for sure.
Mhm.
Definitely, unless it's colossal, or something huge that would take me forever to print. Then there's becomes that time, money savings. Like I got that
Mhm.
Menkare Gold Dragon that Pathfinder did. That thing is gorgeous, and it's really good paint up too.
Mhm.
But other than
Yeah.
that, like I don't think I've gone for anything retail, especially pre-paint. Maybe some box paint ups, but no, I can print them. Night Haunts. I have a friend online. She just said, "Hey, I got half a Night Haunt box set that I don't need. I don't need it for my build out." And I first off was like, "Who are you? Who gives away minis?" But she's like, "Seriously, like just give me your address and I'll send them to you." I'm like, "Nah, I can
Mhm.
print like Night Haunt minis out the wazoo. Why would I? Don't save your shipping."
Like right now, like they've been talking about this on Trapped Under Plastic. You can get, or no, Goobertown Hobbies, one or
Yeah,
Paint Bravely,
yeah.
but one of those podcasts they were talking about you can get a Dominion box for like $80 now, and that's for Games Workshop models like Stormcast. Like it's 2,700 points worth of models divided among two armies. It's stupid. It's a stupidly good deal right now. And those models are nice. They are
Mhm.
primo models. I don't know that I can pull that trigger.
I would be happy if someone gave me one, but I wouldn't buy it right now. Nah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I buy physical models? Yeah, but I have to fall in love with the model. I have to fall in love with the sculpt, and like that's something I can't 3D print easily. Like we're bringing up War Games Atlantic. I'm still drooling over some of their sets and some of the North Star models, the Stargrave stuff and the Frostgrave stuff just looks really nice, and it's stupid cheap, and it's a great deal, and they look great. And I'm like, and I view those like they're under like $1, less than $1 per model in that case. And I'm like, at that point,
well,
I
you're
don't
kind
have
in
to
that
clean
range
them.
because we know it's
Yeah,
about
yeah.
52 cents for usually roughly for a resin if you're doing a little
For a
tenacious
Space
matting.
Marine.
Yeah.
When I priced out that Space Marine, it was 52 cents.
Yeah. So
And
like
that's a big chunky boy. It's a big chunky boy. He eats more
you're
resin
in that
than
range.
most.
You know, like for
Yeah.
instance, right now, one of the few things that still interests me is Sylvaneth. I'm really surprised. I've seen a couple Tree Folky things, but like I haven't seen a Patreon really take on, and maybe they're just scared because of Warhammer's
A lot of the Sylvaneth army is old Hammer stuff though, so it should be not a problem.
Oh, there's a bunch of new really cool Sylvaneth things. Like I keep seeing stuff all the time come out, and when I go get paint, because that's all I go to the Warhammer store for is paint. Lord Novus also agrees that it's hard to buy retail models anymore, and David Wickham says $50 is nice for a liter to resin, or is that $5 for me, or 50? I'm not sure what that means.
So I think it's 5 liters.
Ah, gotcha.
All right. So Mark Shabbat has a question for us. Lots of minis for $10, doing terrain for $10. Should they be mixed or say separate moving forward? Do you think more and more are after it all now? I tend to think that there's groups I go for where I want the models, and there are groups I go for because I want the terrain, and there are very few groups that I'm expecting or want both at once. Like Ian Lovecraft stuff. Like I love Ian Lovecraft stuff. Occasionally there's a model or two I want. They're not bad models, they're good models. But I'm going to Ian Lovecraft stuff because I want to print cool freaking cool freaking terrain. Big old awesome buildings that are supportless and stuff. I'm going for the terrain, and the models are a bonus. And so I'm judging the value on the terrain, and I'm not factoring into the spending at all. And
that's interesting. I'm very similar. Sync ratio systems, which I talk about their bases and terrain a lot. I'm not really into their minis. They just did a creature one that's like even bug creature things that I love bug creature things, but just not doing it for me. And so I just have to look at the terrain or the bases. Same thing.
I do appreciate if I'm getting a set of models, if there's like a couple of pieces of terrain that goes with the theme, or especially scatter terrain and furniture and stuff. Like Artisan Guild always includes one, and that is useful. Yeah, cast and play is the super exception, because cast and play is giving me for their monthly pledge. The models or the terrain would be worth it, and they're both at stupid high quality, and they work together so well, and they interwork with all the other stuff they've done over the years. Like, they are the exception, not the rule. Now, if any company could get to that level, they would have me as a customer for life, but both things are awesome to the same scale, but that's very rare. That's super rare. It also helps that Cast and Play is kind of targeting a very specific niche, and all the terrain stuff they do is unlike anybody else's stuff. It's like the nature stuff, like this super detailed pre-clustered up stuff to easily put a board out that looks super varied instead of having to do that layer upon layer yourself. The modular wall system, the dungeon stick style interior terrain sets that they've kind of double and tripled down on is like almost a product line onto itself.
Yeah, I really like their new wall setup too. I'm hoping we see some naturals in that same modularity. Like
they went back and did a set for the naturals as a bonus free download if you pledged into the natural Kickstarter.
Like the first one?
Yeah. Right before they released the interior.
Add-on.
Oh, I got it for free as a pledge in
I
because pledge
wonder if
ins are
that's like
naturals.
if that link didn't come through to me. I'll have to look for it because I
Yeah.
really want some modular caves. And
Yeah.
like
Caves is in this.
I was thinking about crafting it up, and I was really surprised in the base set, in the dungeon set, there's not any cavern stuff at all. So I was like a little surprised.
So it was right before the interiors launched. They added on a set of modular walls for all the nature themes, and then gave them to me. I think gave them to all the pledge-ins that pledged the natural terrain set.
I'm gonna have to go dig through that now.
Yeah.
But that brings up a great point. That
What's
is
that?
something about this value shopping that is bad. Because you oftentimes, Epic's a great example. When you are a Patreon person, your My Mini Factory link is just here, download everything, and you have to download everything,
Right.
and then you have to go through everything, and you're often looking at the set thumbnail. If you blow it up big enough to actually see anything, you can barely make it out. The distortion's so bad, and the organization of that becomes nightmarish. To like, how do I want the angel? And they've done like 3 or 4. You know me, I like angel figs. They've done like 3 or 4 angel sets that contained numerous angels in them. So now I'm like, well, was that from, Sky Mountain Home, or was it from Celestial Dawning, or what? Like, and I don't freaking know. I actually have to go to My Mini Factory and do searches and find the model for sale, and then go back and look for that file and it's such a pain. Ugh. Anyway, I know, first world problem, right? But it does become, it impacts the value oddly to me.
I find that I prefer to get it all because I do not want to, when I want it all, to download each piece individually, because that becomes a P in my A.
Right. It does, for sure.
Yeah. I want to be able to just get everything all at once. And I'm stalling until Kristen can come back. Hey, welcome back, Kristen.
Sorry about that. I had lost chat, and I don't have any chat history, so I just lost everything. So hopefully,
the last thing we have in chat is David accusing us of being cheap, and David is right.
Oh, we are cheap. I'm absolutely cheap.
Which goes back to let's engage the thing. Are these bundles bad? Like, is it bad that we have become so used to hundreds of models equals $10 to $16?
Is it bad? I mean, it's any market glut, right? Like, you look at companies, when you support specific things, they kind of dominate the shape of that market. So like 5e right now is so big, for instance, that's what you're going to see 99% of the time when you're looking at any role playing anything. So on a similar level, these values, I look at them and it's very hard for me to look at anything that's just singular. And it frankly, they're not even showing up on my Travis page usually. I do have an exception to that I think is interesting. I don't know if you've been seeing Witch Song, which is the exact opposite.
Yeah,
it is opposite, but it's doing well from what I understand. But it's just one mini. And
explain Witch Song.
It is a single boutique. You get 1 mini for $1, and they are gorgeous.
Yeah, and they're big. They're big old table filler, like beasties.
Big, huge, bear wearing a skull headdress thing. Like it's crazy. Go look at it. But it seems to almost be a reaction, almost to, I'm not even going to try to keep up with this.
Right. Yeah, it's a smart choice. Like we saw that with the $5 tiers. Ron Singh was like, "Hey, I can't compete at the 30 models a month thing, so you're going to get a dozen models, and I'm going to charge you $5, and that's what you're going to get." And I've got 4 or 5 of those right now that I'm sub to, and it's real easy for me to sub to those $5 ones and just forget about them. Like whatever. One gold piece is the other one that's doing the low end tier, but they kind of started with that, and they've been doing it since like the dawn of these bundles, where it's $1 a month, and you're really just getting whatever the artist decided to sculpt that month. And it's like, what if Spider-Man was a halfling, but it's still medieval? And that's one of the 4 models I got one month for $1, and I'm like, sure.
Sure, why not?
Sure,
Right.
why not? Why not? Like these skeleton knights look awful lot like stormtroopers, but whatever. For $1, I get a dozen of them. Sure.
Sure. But back to the original question about whether or not it's bad. Like comparing the two, uh, I often only still use 4 models out of the Epic release. So is it even really a difference at all? I don't know. I mean, it's a difference if I need to come back to it, I guess. And the value of my hoard is increasing. But so is
It
the level.
really is. The market does seem to be hoarders. Like that seems to be a distinct market. I'm guilty. I know you're guilty.
Oh yeah.
Whereas what we buy compared to what we print is not anywhere near sane. That is not a sane ratio that we are keeping here. Like we compared on a couple of episodes ago. It's like I was at 12 and you were at a lot more than 12.
A lot more than 12, yes.
Right. And I feel bad. Like that's a whole lot of models I'm downloading or paying for that I'm not using or printing. And a lot of them are sitting in someday projects. So I think it might even be like, it's like my Steam library and grabbing the bundles there. I don't know that if I go out and I will say this, when I go out and buy a model that's a single, or I'm going to buy, like I'm going out to go to my manufactory, search for, I really need a freaking battle priest. I need a battle priest. It's because I'm going to print it that day, or I have a project, need it now. So if I'm buying a single, I'm going to use it. Whereas these bundles, it's FOMO. It's FOMO. It's like I can get these for $10 now, and I won't get them. But if I miss out, it's going to cost me 30, 40, Heroes Infinite, 200. I love you guys. I love you guys, Heroes Infinite, but those aftermarket prices are a bit high.
Oh yeah, well, same thing with Arc Villain too. I'm just looking. I had a pretty active print week last week. Okay? So I bought one little owl mage. I'm looking at the table. He's super cute.
Artist.
Oh shoot. It's not Duncan Rhodes. Normally I would say it would be Duncan Rhodes. I'm not positive. I could look it up. Maybe I'll look it up in here a bit. But that was the only new thing I bought. I had a Daybreak miniatures dwarf. I had 2 Amonkhet looking dog people from Labyrinth. Right. I had some TPK Earth Elementals. I did the larger Earth Elemental from Comet Lord. And then
that's a really good model. That is such a good model.
And I did the bases are all sync ratio because I'm lazy about magnetizing my own holes. But and so I guess that was at least 5, 6 Patreons that I already had everything that I needed. So really my buy for the project for that one game was $3.99 for that little Owl Mini. So I had everything else, and that was cool to just go and dig through my own files and find everything and be like, oh yeah, I really have everything I need here. And it's a really diverse little setup. So I'm pretty happy with that.
And, but how many of those Patreons are you getting just so that one day maybe you'll do it? One day maybe you'll print this army.
How many? Oh, I mean, we already talked about how many. Lots.
Oh, lots. Like how many of those are just the FOMO as opposed to your practically using?
I would say the TPK was definitely a FOMO thing because I really liked their style and I was worried they were new. They seem to have stabilized pretty good. They haven't broke through like I expected them to. And I'm going to probably put that on the really weak Vampire release, but that's neither here nor there. Comet Lord, obviously, I just love the stuff and I would probably be subbing no matter what, as long as I can afford it. Labyrinth was definitely FOMO because I saw this cool Egyptian theme set, and you've talked about Labyrinth. Labyrinth does commoners.
We've had them on the show.
Does commoners, does just a lot of different diversity in their releases. They usually do 2 releases, come back. It's a full army. But yeah, it was definitely a FOMO buy for sure. That I just haven't have. And same with Daybreak, which is now my favorite dwarf I've ever painted, by the way. I really love it.
Awesome. When I went pruning last year, and that's when I did the big prune, the realization that I'm subbed to way too many things that I'm not using. The litmus test I used was Have I ever printed anything from this Patreon? And if the answer was no, it got cut. And really, when I did that recently, that's when Arc Villains got cut. I was like, I have not printed anything from Arc Villains in ages, and it finally got cut. Even though their stuff is amazing, their stuff is wonderful.
You know, though,
one of the reasons so specific, I don't need it.
It's so specific, and their basing. I hate the basing for half the stuff.
I love their basing. I love it.
It's just so bad for gameplay. So bad. But let's see. We have some comments here. Tool that could generate your own preview catalog from your STF files would be really cool. Totally agree.
That would be few different crews that have been trying that over the years. So far, nothing I've seen is really ready for market.
Yeah. And then Scott says, was like this with old Papercraft terrain. I could totally see that, just buying up Papercraft terrain files left and right. Yeah.
I appreciated everybody doing that back when that was where I was working. I love Papercraft terrain. I made way too much of it. And now it's all gone because it was paper and they don't last forever.
Yeah, I've started printing maps for a while and had the same problem where I'd print up a really gorgeous map, and if I didn't go to actually plastic, like print on plastic or really thick lamination, those things just got shredded over the years, especially during moves. So totally get that.
But at the same time, it was paper and it cost nothing to make, so I don't feel bad about it.
Yeah. I mean, ink. It's expensive.
So, but is the $10 a month price hurting the market as a whole? Like, do we really see a 3D printed model and think that that's 1/300th of $10?
I don't.
Let's talk about your owl guy. When it came time, you didn't have it in your collection, and it was time to get the owl. Did the $3.99 put you off buying that owl?
It didn't. I will say this: I had an owl. I had an owl that would work just fine. But I wanted a different vibe, and so that was the thing. Like, and again, when you're considering your projects, you're going to have themes, you're going to have whatever, and these are supposed to be students. And the owl I had was very like old looking and very like, weazened. It would have been good for a teacher at Strixhaven, right? It just wasn't good for a student. And it was just adorable. And for some reason, I'm like, I could break up the look of this by having a little adorable owl guy. But yeah, $3.99 was not a thing to me at the time, right? But it was also because I had everything else covered, so I didn't really balk at it. I have had projects where I didn't have anything, right? And I wanted to build this whole thing up, and I had to go handpick. I think back to those Spider Daemon, the ones we probably couldn't show too closely on the show.
Nope.
And those were, I think some of them were from like Mads Hatchery or something like that, or Nick's Hatchery. I don't remember.
I was thinking it was the Raging Hero set. I was like, oh boy, I can't show that on screen.
It wasn't. But that was individual minis for that whole first wave of my chaos. It was like a spin on the Lust Daemons or whatever. And that, that was pricey. I want to say it came out to like $40 or something on all the individual files. And at that point, I start to feel like I should go back and look at their Patreons and consider, because like we've talked about before, you can go back and sign up for like 3 of their Patreons and get their discount codes.
I do think that I think that's an argument to be made too, that a lot of the single prices are priced in such a way to encourage the FOMO of the bundles.
Sure.
Like looking at the Heroes Infinite, the $200 mega bundles to get the whole month on my mini factory. It was like suddenly that $16 doesn't look so bad. And when you sub for the $16, you get that's like, it's only like $50 or $60 to get a bundle once you get the discounts from your, or Artisan Guild, their bundles are actually, I consider their bundles even sticker price fair. It's like $30 for a month. So their models, and it gets, it's everything. It's everything that the $10 would have gotten you. That's 30 models. And so $30 seems fine. And the discount makes that like $20, and that's extra fine. Titan Forge is also fair. I think they're $40 for their monthly sets. And then is it half off for their discount? A lot of people are half off.
40 or 50. It's in that range. Speaking of which,
So they
though, before I forget to mention it, Arc Villain Games till the 11th or 12th is 70% off right now.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So things are perpetually on sale. It's kind of like the store that in your neighborhood that's always going out of business. And so that's what the market feels like right now when you start to go to buy stuff individually, where it's like, yeah, the prices are high compared to, you know, the $10. What is even is high? I will say that a 3D printed model file being the same price that I can buy that model file in the store is too much money. It needs to be less than that. How much less, I don't know. But if I can get it, if I can get it on Amazon sent to my house and I didn't need to run my printer and I saved money, you got the price wrong.
Yeah. And there's that. And then there's also that reusability. Like one of the things, like talking about the Al Mini, its pose is not versatile. Like it is going to be that one guy. I can't make it into a troop. I can't. And so, yeah, like it for a $3.99 mini, it was on the State Bend. It was just cute. And it was the middle of the night, and I could print it in the middle of the night. So opportunity cost was a thing involved in that decision too. And I think that's probably part of the problem here when we're talking about this is there's so many variables that can be going on, you know, like I can tell you, I'm going to feel like a god during the winter months when I don't have to drive to a game store to make stuff. I'm going to feel freaking amazing. Even if I'm shelling out extra money for files.
And if I guess $5 a single is kind of my max, really, for a hero sized.
I would say generally speaking, when I see somebody who's like got a really like, I think to a lot of chaos hero character type minis, like Great and Clean Wind type stuff, like when it's like $10, I'm kind of like, probably not. I'll wait for a sale.
Yeah. But it does seem like the like there's groups that price things rationally that they expect to be selling the singles, and there's groups that it feels like they're pushing you to get the subscription discount or to, oh boy, you better subscribe or you're going to be paying out the nose for this forever. And I have also found there are so many Patreons out there that if I miss a month on a theme that I really liked, I feel less bad about it because somebody else is going to do it soon and I can jump in then.
Sure. But it is interesting. I think you're onto something here because there are people, and oftentimes they're either low sub asks or their Patreons don't last very long. They have very reasonable singles prices, like $2 and $3 for their singles, and I suspect that's probably how they make most of their money, right? Like is through their singles, because a lot of those people, now that I think about it, like I'll go to their Patreon and it's like, oh, this isn't active anymore. I'm like, but this person was so good. Why are they not active anymore? Well, because they're not churning out gazillion minis. They're just charging
honestly,
something reasonable.
There are crews that do just like they make a model. It goes on my mini factory. You buy it or you don't. There's not a monthly bundle attached. There's lots of crews. Like Mark was in chat recently where they focus on the Kickstarter thing. It's like every so often I'm going to put together a big old Kickstarter of awesome stuff. That's the Lovecraft model, and that's the RE terrain model. A bunch of crews do that, and that's a fine model. That's great.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. Some of those people don't ever put those up in singles, and some of them do too. I'm wondering like that determination, because I think to a lot of them, I want to say maybe Asgard Rising feels like they want you to be on their next Kickstarter, and that you can get the thing you missed, you can get it as an add-on, and that feels like their model to me. Like go back and get them, back big on the next Kickstarter if you missed one. Feels like that's the idea.
Yeah, and I guess it's just like this market's still new. Like as we're starting to see established patterns, we're starting to see players, we're starting to see it become crowded. We are starting to see some people bow out but we're still seeing more people come in than are leaving at this point. So that
we did see someone
the number
come back.
keep going. Who came back?
3D Arts Digital. I just talked about them a little bit earlier, as we talked about in the episode where we interviewed their creative guy. They had problems because they were in Ukraine. Most of their artists, most artists now have got more stable setups, and some of the artists did bow out because it's a lot of hard stuff they're going through over there, but they have a new stable output and feel comfortable, so they've re-upped their Patreon and their tribes, I think. So
nice. Always glad to
some
hear that.
very, very interesting models. I actually feel like they're energized a little bit by the experience, so I will caution people that are a little dark right now. But yeah, they're very cool. I think there's some really good stuff coming out of them, and I hope people can support them now that they're back on the market.
And this entire topic is kind of dancing around the fact that we're starting to see some really big players in the physical space finally starting to look at the 3D space. Mantic Games has announced that they're going to start releasing 3D printable files as options and upgrade kits for their physical kits, which is, it's tiptoeing into the water to see how that goes. Yeah. But they're starting to play. We saw the same thing with the Fallout minis and those minis. Not Fallout and Skyrim sets got kind of released, and the big news is Wargames Atlantic, one of the bigger model makers out there that isn't GW, is jumping in with both feet hardcore.
Yeah, you were saying it was a pretty high STL file count.
Well, what's been announced is we don't know the specifics from what's been announced. Okay, gang. They have teased a lot of stuff here. We do know that I'm pulling up some of their stuff. They're going to focus on what they're really strong with, which is a lot of modular kits. They showed off like what they're calling the Damned for Deathfields, which is like the very grim darky 40K ish sets, and they've got this like very, very could be useful if you like Chaos Guard or Dark Guard, because it's like a bunch of really soldier dudes with spikes on everything and optional mutant demon hands and chainsaws and cool stuff that you can expect there. The historicals are something else they're noted for. So they showed off one of their historical kits. This is not a soldier set. This is one of their hero models.
Okay.
And all the possible options to customize it.
Yeah, I could see that, like a Theros character for D&D would be also really cool. But yeah, you with the modularity there, you can still make a squad.
And here's like all these cool freaking alien heads that you could use with any, and all their stuff that they produce is like cross-compatible already. And so this stuff is going to be cross-compatible too. So like, even if you're buying their physical kits and buying this stuff and they've made it really clear that they're jumping into the digital market hardcore. The details on pricing, release, and stuff like that kind of like not been announced yet. But just from what they've shown and the fact of who they are, this could be one of the next big mega sets, and I fully expect it to be.
Cool.
Yeah. And also, it's one of the bigger mini producers finally just jumping into 3D printing and embracing it, as opposed to fighting and struggling against it. We've been wondering who was going to be first and like to actually fully embrace it, and it looks like it's going to be them. Like, we've had like the Titan Forge and the smaller crews, but this is one of the first. We are big enough to have our own mold making equipment, like to make the metal molds you need to do the injection plastic, the stuff that even Reaper Miniatures in the United States doesn't have one of those.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me actually of what Magic's done with Arena and MTGO. They went digital, and that just gave them more money. And you know what? They're also going premium. The Secret Lairs, you can buy this ridiculous alt art stuff, or there's a packs for the 30th anniversary that are like hundreds of dollars a booster pack. It's ridiculous.
Oh my gosh, I can't. That's craziness.
Well, and it's gold border, so it's just ridiculous. But my point is, you can go both ways, right? You can have, I think GW is already kind of there with their, unique characters that they only do through certain release days and at the stores, or give them promos for, some of the shops. And like, I saw this cool ogre that I was just like, oh, that was really neat. I think I could pick that up, thinking maybe it'd be $20-30. I was like, holy
Mhm.
crap, it was a collector's
Mhm.
release special fantasy or Age of Sigmar Ogre that was like $90. I was like, nope.
Oh no, Games
Nope.
Workshop.
But
Yeah, I saw this really cool necromancer I wanted, and it was because it was kind of like one of their old hammery
yeah.
sculpts, and they had it in my local game store. And I'm like, I want it, and I turned it $35. One little dude this big, one little 28 millimeter, not even fancy looking.
Yeah. Well, I was like the alt sculpts. Like I want to say was it Black Fortress or Black? I don't know. It was like a
Blackstone Fortress.
yes, maybe it was like a
Mhm.
alternate, but they had alternate sculpts of hero characters that you could only get in that box set.
Mm.
Yeah,
Oh boy.
it was super expensive, and I was like, I can't justify the fact that I don't play this game and I don't have this army, but I just like that guy. No, can't do it.
They got a cool ogre right now for the Cursed City expansion that's like on the back of a wolf, like a big old dire wolf, and he's got the cool
Mhm.
Russian hat and fur, like Radagast or something is his name, and he's a vampire ogre,
Oh,
and that's
cool.
awesome. And he's $50.
Yeah, yeah. Quick aside, we talked about non-standard undead, and a couple episodes ago, all sorts of new sets. I saw a
Yay,
Ratman,
awesome.
Wraith people, so it's kind of like Night
Mhm.
Haunts, but they're Ratmen. I was like,
I saw
oh,
that. Those
that's
look
such a
so
cool mashup.
cool.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry. I had to
Oh.
rave about
So
that for a second.
we usually lead with this, but we've kind of talked the topic. So if you got your opinions, like, do you think things are hurting it too much? Leave it in the comments or toss us an email wherever you see this episode. We would super appreciate to know, hey, what do you think about the value? How much should minis cost? How much should files cost? And like, honestly, like if a new Patreon came out tomorrow, like if War Games Atlantic announced their pricing and it was $30 a month for a bazillion models, would you still even consider it since Epic exists?
I don't know. Yeah,
That's
that's going to
hard,
be
right?
interesting. I can't wait to hear other people's opinions. But for me, I don't think I can make that call because, like, after $10, I don't know. There's like a hesitation.
Mhm.
That's I think loot,
Yeah.
which is still iffy for me, is too almost too much. And same thing with Heroes Infinite, but I'm going to stick with them because I'm a fanboy.
Yeah, Heroes
But
Infinite's the quality plus the quantity. It's like, yeah, I can
yeah,
get $16. It hurt me, but I'll do it. I'll do it. Even especially since like when you're committing to these monthly bundles, you're also committing to getting the months you didn't want.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Especially if you buy into an annual and then they like decide to suddenly only make physical products and leave you.
That is going to be a chip on your shoulder for a while now, isn't it, Kristen?
At least until they give me some sort of, hey, here's our plan. Just
Right.
do that.
Right. Scott DeYoung, I would rather buy the individual sculpts I need, even if it costs more. That is the sane answer, Scott. Or going into what I said before, only sub to the thing you intend to print right now. And like, if you view these bundles as just a purchase price for $10, and you also only buy them if you intend to print them right now, then it's amazing deal. It's amazing deal. It's when you keep them going and the FOMO keeps you buying stuff you don't want.
Yeah, it's rough because like I for a while was very, very good about okay, it's the first week of the month. I'm gonna unsub from everything I'm not positive, and then I would miss an amazing month of something, and like it just kills me. Like, I want to say White Werewolf Tavern did a huge angel set that I missed out, and it's just now it's super expensive, and so yeah, it's rough. Like I'm like, ugh, I
I think
can't.
that might have answered. It's super expensive. How much is super expensive, Kristen?
Oh, I want to say it's like $50 maybe, but like I'm not gonna. I'll buy the singles, yeah, I'll buy the singles.
Scott crap just looked at loot. Now I'm not so sure.
Right?
This is a slippery slope, people.
Exactly.
Oh, This is how they get you. This is how they get you. None of us are printing anything. We're just collecting digital files. We're filling up hard drives, making the mini companies and Western Digital rich.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. The closest thing I'm starting to develop is do I want to print that? Like, because a lot of terrain pieces, especially the FDM stuff right now, like I just had a big pile of spaghetti on my FDM printer, and
Oh
that's
no.
going to be the thing that scares me off. Is is this going to be difficult to print? Like, I'll tell you, when I open up a dragon and it's in 15 pieces, that dragon's
scares you, huh?
probably staying in the file. It's probably not getting printed. I'll do it sometimes.
Speaking of struggling with FDM printers, I have a conclusion to a saga. The Neptune 3, I have gotten it working. I have fixed it. I've replaced the parts. I have done all the things and updated the firmware. And now I have successfully solved the bed. I ran into bed adhesion issues, which is just, this is actually just, it's not the Neptune's fault. This is just a normal 3D printer thing where, hey, sometimes it's just depending on your environment. Also, the Neptune 3 has this like metal plate thing that just gets oil on it and it's really hard to clean otherwise. So I just went to Uncle Jesse tip of using hairspray on the bed before you print. Yeah. Also, the cheap hairspray. The going to the Dollar Tree and finding the cheapest hairspray you can get. The stickiest, tackiest, worst hairspray ever. This ain't going anywhere near my hair, but it's going on the 3D print bed. And ever since I started doing that, I've been getting perfect prints. I don't know if you can see this on stream, but
it's good. It's nice.
This is that Archmage Manor I talked about from Lovecraft, and it is flawless. It is no wobble, no mar, no marks, no shifting. It is freaking flawless print. And I have, like, as much as I loved my Neptune 2, and it did amazing prints, it never did anything close to this good.
Yeah.
And I love it. And this took 2 days. This took 2 whole days to print because it is a thick boy. Like, it's the bottom mountain plus the first basement floor of the tower at 0.2 layer height.
Yeah.
And since that was just asked from Joseph in chat.
Yep.
And it took 2 days to print this. So obviously I'm not printing super fast speeds or anything. And oh boy. Square Peg asked, do I do any PID tuning? Nope. Just the stock profile in the Cura that came with the printer. Like, not even the newest version of Cura, just the stock profile they gave me. And just slap this on there, put a brim around it because I was having adhesion issues. And threw down the hairspray on the bed. Let updated firmware. If you get a Neptune 3, make sure you're using the newest firmware. Absolutely make sure you're using the newest firmware. Is that hard to
install? Is it just like put it on
you put a file on your SD card, boot the printer.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then the most annoying part is then take that file off of your the SD card, or else every time you use that SD card, it'll update the firmware over again and over and over and over again. Which just means it takes a little longer to boot than normal, so you could do that. Why update the firmware? The firmware that shipped on my printer, and now as I understand it, this newer printers are shipping with the newer firmware, but just double check. But it was forgetting the Z height, so it would print one print great, and then the next print it would re-level and get the Z height wrong, and so try to print in midair or try to bury that nozzle in my build plate. So basically, the auto leveling feature wasn't working and was basically producing wrong results on the 1.0 firmware, because I was an early backer for that printer.
I also am, so I definitely need to do that.
Yeah, so update that firmware before you print with it. It's painless. You just go get a file off the website, put it on the card, boot the printer, you're done. There's also firmware for touchscreen that can add some extra features and stuff. I haven't done that because that involves unscrewing the touchscreen, because the SD card slot for the touchscreen is inside its housing. It seems to be fairly painless to do, but I'm lazy and I don't want to take apart the piece.
Not going to happen.
So I didn't have to do it, so I didn't.
Open my printer. Don't make me do it.
Yeah. But updating the firmware and then just some hairspray to keep the thing adhesion using the stock profile, and it's gorgeous. I've got the second floor printing. This took 2 days. The other floors are all taking a day apiece, so it's going to take me a week. But this thing should be like,
so hopefully you'll have it next week, right?
A foot tall or more.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and it looks glorious, and it's exactly what I wanted. Again, this is from A Tale of Two Cities campaign that Lovecraft did. I'm sure that there's late pledging to get into it, or the model's probably for sale somewhere. Alex Shavler says my printer isn't complete until I've replaced 3/4 of the parts. This is why I wanted a printer. Listen, I know you FDM bros out there. I know you love it. I know you love doing it, and I respect you for it. I respect it. I ain't about that life. I want to buy a printer and have it work, and that's what I want to happen.
Well, and after this most recent experience and then printing off a whole bunch of cast and play walls, I'm like, am I just going to be a resin terrain guy from now on? Maybe. I don't know.
It's an option. Honestly, like we talked about, I think that that maybe the best version of the 3D printer gamer enthusiast that might exist is, well, FDM, if you got a good, reliable FDM printer. But this takes so long. 2 days to print this. That's a long time. And obviously, the printer's doing the work. I'm not doing the work, so whatever. But it definitely can't be rush ordered like a resin print can be.
Right.
But where you're just 3D printing minis, and you're 3D printing furniture and stuff like that, small terrain pieces, and then you just foam crafting and texture rolling your big pieces, or you're getting your Blackmagic Craft on, or you're getting really cool deals like the stupid castle I got for way too cheap for a massive freaking castle.
So much
or you're getting the oh gosh, I know we're running a little late, but I gotta throw this up on screen. I love this little castle.
If you're listening to us, Param got a screaming deal on this just because apparently you noticed it cluttering a store.
Yeah. So local game store had this in a cardboard box that was just nobody was like, it was half hidden, and I paid almost nothing for it. I won't say how much.
It's such a find.
Whatever you're thinking, less.
Do you have the built out?
And there, and then this isn't even. This is like 2/3 of the pieces, and I was able to build like a full castle. This is the old WizKids Mage Knight castle kits that were sold individually. Like you bought like 2 of these walls together, or just the tower, or just the keep. And that's how they sold them. So whoever got this bought a bunch of it. And it was meant for like some sort of siege gameplay. They have stats. There's stats on these towers, and the little corner pieces turn to change the stats. And so it's huge. It's huge. It's all pre-painted. It's all the scale, and all the doors open up and everything. It's great. So
David,
like,
it's not
I didn't have to 3D print it,
but it was close.
Oh yeah. But so like, this is going to look gorgeous, but it's going to take me like a week to print the whole tower for the Archmage Tower. Buying terrain can be expensive or dirt cheap at a deal. And then there's the mid-range, which is those Russian papercraft, really awesome scale model kits that make these gorgeous looking buildings made out of cardboard.
Yeah.
And I think there's like there's another one that's like aimed just at gamers that's come out recently, like Battle Systems or something. I forget the name of it. That's also gorgeous. And so, you know, there's a way to get a whole bunch of terrain on the cheap without having to, you know, pay the GW prices. And with a resin printer plus cheap or DIY terrain is probably the smartest play to go with. And then like an FDM printer, like just printing out stuff slow that you want, that you're not in a hurry for, it definitely adds value to that. But
I mean, there are those
isn't strictly necessary.
Those vanity pieces, like Joseph mentioned, the Dragon Trapper Launch 4-foot Spelljammer ship thing. I want to make it, but it's going to be a commitment.
Yeah,
and probably a lot of bad words coming out of my mouth with failures.
By the time this tower is done, it will have eaten a roll of filament. So I'm out $15.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's cheap, but not that cheap.
Right. So if I could get this for less than $15, it would be a better deal.
Yeah.
But you're never going to find terrain that cheap.
I don't know. Some of us are getting old, Param. Keep your eye out. State sales.
Oh, yard sales. You could do the discount toy box version where you get those old Fisher Price castles and then just repaint them.
One
That
of my
stuff can
friends
look
on TikTok,
glorious.
definitely, she knocks out some really cool. It's old garage sale toys and dollar store stuff. That's all she does. Does some really cool work with it.
Awesome. All right, and with that, we have gone over. So we thank you all for joining us. Make sure to check us out next week for sure. This has also been, and I didn't pump in circumstances enough. This is our 1 year anniversary. Print Your Games has been going for a year now. Episode 50. 50. All right. So if you want to find more of our content, you can find us over at printyourgames.com. We're on all the socials, at least until Twitter stops existing. At Facebook, at Twitter, all the Print Your Games. We're on YouTube at youtube.com/Param or at Param now that they're doing that. That's a fun way to go. We would definitely love to hear from you. You can email us at podcast@printyourgames.com, and we would love your opinions in the comment sections. If you want to help the show out, give us a review on iTunes or Spotify. That gives us the biggest bump, and we would appreciate it if you told us how much you enjoyed the show. Until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
I'm Kristen Sauer, it's also known as Seventh Mastery, and don't forget to use a screen protector.